one of you is here as a testimony to the great person that Tom was and is. The point I made yesterday is that it's going to be very difficult for any of us to talk about Tom in the past tense. And the reason for that is that Tom is not in the past tense, because Tom is inside each one of us. Some part of him will live forever inside of us, because our relating to him wove our lives, knitted our lives into each other in such a way that he'll always be with us. And so I think that you will surprise yourself, or maybe not be a surprise, but it'd be very difficult to talk about Tom in a past tense. In fact, this morning, as I was saying, I'm going to go to, I said, Tom and Pete's, because that's the way this place was known to me always, and will always be known to me that way. It's Tom and Pete's place. And Tom is present in a different way also in this place that he dreamed about. Not all of you saw this place as the old dump that it was at one time. And Tom and Pete dreamed it into what it is now. And so Tom is interwoven into all of this over here. I will not say much more other than I read a poem yesterday. I will not read it again, but I'll just refer to it. And it's by Ernesto Cardenal, who is a Nicaraguan priest. And priests usually say at funerals, "Dust you are, and to the dust you shall return." So it was wonderful that Cardenal said, "We are stardust, and to the stars we do return." And before Tom returns totally to the stars, he will continue to give life to this wonderful place over here, and to each one of us who carry a portion of him in our lives. Death sort of dismembers a person, but we have this wonderful capability to remember a person. So I invite you now to remember Tom and share with us. You know, the one thing I love about inviting people to talk about someone who has gone to the next stage of life is that, wow, did he really do that? You know, like, after all these years, I never knew that he had that outfit for hair. You know, has everybody seen that? You know, doesn't surprise me now that I've seen it, but I did not know that before today. So, please share with us. And, okay, number one, right there.
I think Tom would feel it only right if we all had the Notre Dame score. Does anybody? Can't get a signal.
Yeah, but he wouldn't like the UCLA score today.
Let's not talk about that.
All right.
What was it, Terry?
28-21 to Oregon State.
Oh.
Oregon State! About the size of Culver City.
That's what he would say also. Remember him shouting at the TV whenever the Lakers did something wrong or UCLA did something wrong, you know, that's Tom also. So your turn to do that every now and then when, like, Oregon State!
That's Tom.
Okay, other persons, just...
Tom's feelings about John Wooden. Pete and Tom and I used to go watch the UCLA basketball team when it was the team. And everybody in America adored John Wooden because he was an angel. Well, underneath his breath with the program he always held, it was you. It was always cursing somebody. And Tom sat next to him and he'd come running over to us and destroy the illusion of John Wooden.
Right. Well, we're here to destroy the illusion that death completely takes somebody away from us. That's not true. Tom is with us, and so share more from him, and your own the way you carry Tom inside of you, or something of him. Go ahead.
I want to say something. Oh, you go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, go
No,
ahead.
I defer to you. I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
It's okay, no worries.
No,
Okay.
Okay. I had a family reunion, so all of you folks that went know that we all filled out these forms.
Oh, no.
And Cindy gave me a bunch, and I've got this from Hoyt or Peter, but this is in Tommy's handwriting, and there are questions about your life. Even to a question like, what was in your stocking at Christmas time? And then we'd all get one of everybody's family, so we kind of knew some history. But Tommy wrote this. This is his handwriting. And I'll tell you the question and read you his response. And this is directly from Tommy. Do you have any other thoughts, words of wisdom, or remembrance that you would like to share? And this is what Tommy wrote. I am blessed to have the experience of my life and treasure all of my family and friends who enrich my life in so many ways. First and foremost, in capital letters, love yourself. You can't genuinely love or accept others without first genuinely recognizing your own worth.
Here.
Otherwise, one might confuse love with dependence on the approval of others to feel good about yourself. The greatest joy in life is the realization that we, in fact, are created in the image of God. We just need to come to believe in it.
Woo!
Wow.
Beautiful. You want to leave age before beauty?
Of course.
Okay, Hoy.
Well, I want to do it for Tom's younger brother, and I want to first recognize a friend of ours, Peter and Roberta and I, Lazaro. Where are you, Lazaro? And Lazaro, to me, typifies Tommy and Pete's life. Lazaro was born in Cuba, and we met him in Havana. I don't know, it was about 10 years ago or so. And Tommy and Pete befriended him, we befriended him, and the result of all that was that Lazaro left Cuba, went to Mexico, was in Mexico for a period of time, and there's a policy called wet foot, dry foot. Anytime a Cuban gets into the United States, they stay, they get papers. And so Tom and Pete and Peter had been working with Lazaro to get him into the United States and over the years. And Lazaro had the opportunity, got a late phone call in Havana and got on a boat and went to Mexico. And, you know, car rides and gunshots later. And he wound up, I think about a year later in Tijuana. And he called Tommy. And Tommy said, well, just cross the bridge and they'll pick you up and I'll be down there. And sure enough, Lazaro crossed the bridge, the police picked him up, Lazaro called Tommy, Tommy was on his way down to get him. And that just typifies Tommy. And I can tell you many stories about people all over the world, in the United States, where Tom and Pete was befriended, and not for any reason other than just the love of humanity and people. And so I wanted to point Lazaro out as an example of that. Secondly, I wanted to tell a story about Tom and Pete and I and Roberta, which again typifies Tommy, and I think in many ways you can all relate to it. One year we went to Santa Fe, New Mexico on the train, and it was Peter and I and Tommy and Roberta. And so we were in Santa Fe, and Tommy said, let's go out to an Indian reservation. This was at Christmas time. And so we went out to this Indian reservation outside of Santa Fe, and it turns out that they were having these dances that they do annually. And it's real Indian, you know, whoa, 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 you know, and the whole thing, you know. And what they do is, it's a big tourist attraction, but they keep the tourists like chain blocked away 2 or 3 blocks. So we're just kind of standing there prior to the start of the ceremonies. And Tommy comes up to us and says, come on, we're going to have lunch. And I said, what? He said, we're going to have lunch. We've been invited to a hogan. Some Indian woman has made us lunch. And I'm thinking, oh God, here goes Tommy. You know? So we went to the hogan, we had lunch, and then she invited us to the Indian dancing. And so here we are, the 4 of us, wrapped in Indian blankets with all the other Indians, watching the dancing, and I look over and about 3 blocks away are all the tourists, you know, chained up. And I, to this day, have no idea how Tommy did it. we all relate to that in some story or another. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and you know, my brother meant a lot to me, in different parts of my life. When I was younger, and we were little, and we were, you know, 5 and 10 and so forth, I looked at him as more of my boss and supervisor. And he looked at me as an employee. But and then we grew apart a little bit. I got married, and he kind of went off, and we were together, but not. And then about the last 15 years, we started traveling together. Pete, Roberta, and I, and you know, to Europe and Turkey and stuff. And I learned my whole relationship and understanding of Tommy changed. I mean, I found out that it wasn't the traveling so much as it was the people that you meet when you travel.
Yeah.
We were down in Mexico, and down in Puerto Penasco. We have a place down there. You know, it's high rises and beautiful restaurants. And Tommy and Pete were down there, and Tommy says, "Well, I want to go see where the people are."
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, "Well, Tom, Jesus, there are people all over the place, you know?" He says, "No, I mean, where do the real people live?" And I said, "We mean downtown Puerto Penasco?" He says, "Yeah." So I took him down. He spent the afternoon by himself downtown Puerto Penasco doing God knows what. But anyway, he's been a lot of things to me. Big brother and all that entails. He's taught me a lot about life, about people, and I sort of feel like Ignacio, because I don't think, for me, he's not gone. It's still Tom, Pete's this, and so I guess I'm having a little bit of difficulty dealing with the fact that he is gone, because he's meant so much to us. Anyway, I love him dearly, and I'll miss him. Thank you.
So I just wanted to share the one thing that I really loved most about Uncle Tom. And Uncle Pete does this as well, and I spoke to him about it yesterday, and he asked me to share this, and that's what I was planning on. For me, even growing up as a little kid, since I was about this age and younger, Uncle Tom always would come and talk to me. Anytime I saw him, whether it be a year in between or not, he would always sit me down and he'd have a conversation with me. And it wasn't the conversation that you usually have with people you haven't seen in a while, or people that you don't see often, and like where they just kind of make small talk. Uncle Tom would always ask you real questions and follow them up and actually listen and really hear what you're saying and really care about what you have to say. And as I got older, the questions got deeper, more philosophical, and I've always taken that and that's what I think why he makes those connections around the world, because he's a genuine person who really cares about what he's asking somebody. He doesn't waste his words. You know what I mean? Last time we were here in the end of June, when we came to see him, I got the opportunity to talk to him for like an hour and a half or whatnot, and we just talked about books and stuff and the philosophy of how he's trying to live through that last part of his life here, and the outlook, the positive outlook and everything. And even though he was limited the way he could speak through the iPad and whatnot, we could still have that conversation, and I could still tell that he cared about everything that I had to say. And that's the one thing I loved about him, is that he was a true listener. Go ahead, Bob.
Me?
Yes, sir.
He's a teacher, but you don't have to raise your
Forgive
hand.
me if I don't stand, which would be very appropriate to do so, but if you'll forgive me that. I've known Tommy since 1939. Anybody beat that here? You've known him longer than that? 1939? And the only reason I mention that, I'm Tom's older brother, Courtney, and a couple of things. First of all, in contemplating Tom's life and who he was, I have no word or a combination of words that adequately can describe him. I really can't. I wouldn't know how to encapsulate his personality, who he was inside, who he was as a person. There's no way I could describe it. And I'll say that's a a very positive thing, but I'll tell you, it drove me nuts at times, I have to be honest. Tommy was wonderful. He was unconventional, but I thought I'd share a couple of things as a child, as I remember Tommy, because I think it had a lot to do with his adult life. First of all, there's a picture of Tommy. If any of you haven't seen it, I think it's still in there. Is that right, Mary? Or
It's around. It's right down here by the easel.
yeah, take a look at Tommy, a picture with the dog.
Yep.
And if you want to know what Tommy was, in essence, it's in that picture. You look at Tommy's face, it's an angel. That's all I can tell you. It's the sweetest thing you'd ever want to see. And I remember him when he was that age. But here's the deal. When he was that age, and all the way up probably to college, Tommy was not Mr. Popularity. He was not Mr. anything, really. He was always with some different kind of people as friends. He wasn't a good athlete. He was not even into sports. He tried a little bit here and there. But he just was a very sweet, loving person that was out of step with the average young person in the 1940s and 1950s when we grew up together. I hardly spent any time with Tommy. I'm out playing sports and doing stuff. And here's Tommy, you know. He wasn't cool. He wasn't cool. But he had more than anybody else that were cool. He had something special that came out as he grew older. But as a youngster, he was discriminated against. As a little youngster, that some of the adults thought he was great and loved him, and so, but the kids, he wasn't a popular kid. He really wasn't. Going on to college, he started college. This is one of the most I'm most ashamed of in my life. He and I both pledged a fraternity. Went to the Rush Week. This was in 1958. And Tommy, even still at that time, wasn't a smooth operator, you know, and being eccentric, a little bit off-center in terms of how he behaved, that wasn't cool in the fraternity world, certainly. So we went in to pledge this fraternity, and a few days later somebody came up to me and said, "Is this a package deal?" Because I'd been in the Navy, so I could buy booze. That's the only reason they wanted me. But is this a package deal? You and your brother, do we have to take both of you? And of course, the noble answer was hell yes. You either take both of us or you don't take anybody. But I didn't say that. I just said, no, it's not a package deal. I'm very ashamed of that. Tommy went through college, got his PhD. But as a young man, Tommy, without getting into details, I think most of you know Tommy's life experience. You talk about prejudice. Unbelievable. As a young child growing up, one time he almost tried to kill himself when he was just a young boy. And he went to his mother, my mother, Hoyt's mother, Mary's mother, and she kind of talked him into settling down. He was ready to kill himself as a young child because of prejudice. I'm a sissy, I'm a this, I'm a that. You know, he dealt with that. Then he got older as a young man. He tried to live a life that really wasn't him. And after a while he realized that's not me. And finally he was able to do what was him. And he and Pete got together and formed a beautiful relationship. And I can tell you, about Tommy. Within the last 2 years, Tommy and I did a lot of work together on his different companies, and we fought like hell and didn't agree on much. And I mean, he and I are like opposite ends of the pole, other than we love each other, and which is the main thing, by the way. But he got real angry one day, and he talked about the discrimination against him throughout his life. All this anger, all this pain came out when he got thinking, when he got in an argument. It surfaced. I'd never heard it before in Tommy. I never realized what this young person and his older person had dealt with as a human being, a loving, wonderful human being. His whole life probably had to deal with that kind of prejudice. And it was a real eye-opener for me. And just in conclusion, I'd like to say that agree with other people that have said, this is Tommy and Pete's, and we wish Pete the very best in his life going forward, but somehow or other, this will always be Tommy's as well. And even if somebody else owns the property, it's still going to be Tommy's as far as I'm concerned.
Here, here.
And thank you.
Daughter Danielle, and I am Tommy's niece. Hoyt is my father, and Roberta is my mother, and she's taking a bath in the restroom.
I'm your cousin.
We're all family. Our family
Kissing cousins, please.
Families everywhere. Some of you know, not many know. I don't think. Danielle and I had a very tumultuous break up about a year or so ago. And it was very devastating to both of us, but we were too proud to say anything or try to reconcile. And my father recently had a milestone birthday. And Uncle Tommy was there with his iPad and wrote on his iPad, "Promise me you will make it work with your daughter." And we have.
Here, here.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Yes, yes. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh.